Jamey Eisenberg's all sleeper team right now on FFT Express. All right, Jamey, first, before we get into the all sleeper team, I have a confession to make.
Okay.
Don't get mad. And don't judge me, people. Yesterday, we were doing a mock draft, half PPR. It was going well. I had a couple of auto picks in, I don't know, 9 and 10, 10 and 11, something like that, those rounds.
Rashad Bateman and Amari Cooper.
I fell asleep. Since we're on the all-sleeper team, you should know I should probably be on the all-sleeper team because I briefly dozed off during the draft. Sorry.
Can I tell you, it's probably going to happen to me today because we have Dave's auction draft. And, you get to that point where, like, you're out of money or, you're going to let some bids go by because you want to save some money for the, group of players that are assuming you're going to come up. It's probably not the best way to do it. But I turn the volume all the way up to when I hear it's now your turn to nominate a player or you're on the clock. Because there are times like when our drafts, especially like you're on an end, right? So you're picking on an end. And when everybody's using, we do 60 seconds per pick on almost all of our drafts. So when you're sitting there and it's minute, it's like you get that 15-minute lull of you get those off.
I hadn't recovered from the draftathon yet, too. It was a really long day the day before. I needed my nap. I got about a 3-minute nap in. All right, all sleeper team. Give me quarterbacks on the all sleeper team.
So just for anybody that's still doing their drafts, I did my final version of sleepers. 32 sleepers I put on the list just because all of my favorite guys for the players that are being picked after number 120 overall. So it's a little overkill, but the quarterbacks that I wrote about that I love in this space, and I removed Drake May because he's a breakout candidate for me. So you got Jordan Love, you got Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud. Make sure I have all the names for you. Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, and JJ McCarthy.
It's a lot of sleepers, and it's illustrative of how we, draft the position, right? You definitely want to give yourself a shot with some of these sleepers.
I think that's part of it, is that the position's so deep. And I didn't even include, other guys you can basically get for free, which like Michael Penix and Bryce Young. Now, you don't want to clearly go into your season starting those guys. And a lot of these quarterbacks are not necessarily guys you want to open the season with in a 1-quarterback league. But I think at some point we're going to see them play significant roles for fantasy managers. And Stroud's schedule is easy. So it's, someone you can buy back into. Dan Schneider talked about it, I think, our last mailbag, how much he likes CJ Stroud, or maybe it was on our CBS Sports Network show where he gave him his bold prediction. But McCarthy, I think they did a great thing by giving him Adam Thielen, so another solid weapon for the first 3 games while Addison's out, and that's a great part of their schedule too. Lawrence, we've talked ad nauseum about. Jordan Love, we've talked ad nauseum about. There's just a lot to like there. And Caleb Williams was somebody that was a breakout candidate for a lot of us, going into training camp, and now you're getting him at such a discounted price. Like, remember, he was a top 12 quarterback. I know for me he was. I think for Dave and Heath, certainly in the range, and now you're getting him in the teens as a good backup with a lot of potential. I know you draft him in several leagues as a high-end backup.
I do. I'm hoping that when we do our lessons learned, I don't really have that much him. I've drafted him a lot of mocks. I don't have that much Caleb Williams. I would like to. Maybe I have a few more drafts left. Maybe I'll take another shot. I would hope that at the end of the year, when we do a lessons learned episode, we go, stop paying attention to preseason. Because I know the struggles were there for him. Actually, he looked good in the preseason games. He apparently did not look so good in training camp.
But you know what, though? I'm glad you bring that up, because you want sometimes when there's a new coach and a young player, and especially if that's a marriage, it's okay if they look bad because they're trying things.
I'm learning. Right. All right. How about running backs on the sleepers list?
So again, removing Braylon Allen from this list because I consider him a breakout candidate, but these are a lot of my favorite players. Ollie Gordon, Bhayshul Tuten, Dylan Sampson. These are all guys I think that have a chance to play significant roles. Jaden Blue, Brian Robinson Jr. is now in this range. Trey Benson, Ray Davis, and Will Shipley. So some handcuffs that you're looking at that could play some roles, but I think Ollie Gordon's going to get off to a good start. I think Dylan Sampson's going to get off to a good start. And Bhayshul Tuten is somebody that is a player you want to roster just in case he does get an opportunity to be the Jaguars guy at some point in the middle of the season.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll get some wide receiver sleepers and tight end sleepers after this. We're back on Fantasy Football Today Express. Wide receiver sleepers, Jamey.
Yeah, another list that, guys, we talked about this yesterday a little bit. So some players that I think have a chance to sort of ascend into the top 30 range, guys like Christian Kirk and Josh Downs. Downs is just insane value, I think, for what he could be with Daniel Jones. Jalen Coker now definitely belongs in this range of receivers for me. Darnell Mooney, Demario Douglas, Luther Burden, Marvin Mims, Rashid Shaheed, Cedric Tillman, and then a couple of floor options in Romeo Dobbs and Wan'Dale Robinson, and Deontay Thornton is free space on draft day. You mentioned about not overspending for him from a fab perspective, and I agree with you. However, sometimes when you see a player that has a lot of upside, if he hits in week 1, so what would you say it was $12 was spent on him?
Dante Thornton Jr.?
Yeah.
Yes.
It seems like a lot now. If he goes out in week 1 and has not the Isaiah Likely game, but has a 80 yards and a touchdown, 6 targets, 4 catches, 80 yards and a touchdown. What do you think that $12 is now?
I wouldn't
Guy that
spend.
got some
I
buzz.
probably wouldn't spend $12 on him even in that scenario.
Okay, but in the case of a guy that got buzz in the preseason and then performs in week 1,
yeah, he's going to go for 30. But so did Isaiah Likely. That's kind of the point.
no, I'm not trying to compare the two, but like these players, when you can get them, that particular manager may have gotten him for $6.
Look, obviously he still fits. He's the good sleeper, right? That's what we're talking about today. Good sleeper wide receivers. A lot of good late round picks there for Jamey. And yeah, you mentioned Coker.
The one thing I just want to say with these receivers, Tillman, Shaheed, Mims, Thornton, you kind of see the profile. There's not going to be a consistent amount of targets on a week-to-week basis, but the potential could be huge if they do get those targets and if they start to become consistent options. We saw it for Mims at the end of last season. We saw it for Shaheed at the beginning of last season. We saw it for Tillman in the 4-game stretch. Guys like Demario Douglas and Wan'Dale Robinson in PPR could be awesome just because of the volume of receptions that they can get. So it's kind of an easy path that you see I'm trying to find for some of these guys. And Coker and Mooney are guys, and Kirk are guys that could be insanely good on their teams because of what roles they're going to play and may just be great value based on their cost.
So who are your 2 favorites?
My 2 favorites are Kirk and Downs.
Okay. And tight ends?
Tight ends, it's a mix of some, players with upside and some veterans that you can still get at some good value. So Colston Loveland is in this range. And if you go back to our post-draft conversation, and, depending on which analyst you ask, Dave versus, let's say, Jacob Gibbs, there are a lot of people that still think Loveland's better. And you're getting him at such a discounted price that it's just easy to draft him. Dalton Kincaid, I still think has plenty of upside. And I know Dave loves Keon Coleman. Wouldn't shock me if Kincaid is that guy, that breakout receiving option for the Bills. Jake Ferguson is free on draft day. Essentially, he's after, pick 120. Dallas Goedert's still going to be around 10, 11 PPR points per game. I would take a flyer on Kyle Pitts still, just because if he stinks early in the season, you drop him. I wouldn't take him as my number 1 tight end, but as a number 2 tight end. And then one of the more underrated players this year that we did not spend enough time talking about is Chig Okonkwo. We're looking at the profile, right? You say it all the time. You were the first person to bring this up on our show several years ago. Who can be second on their team in targets? Well, you look at this Titans receiving core, and it's Tyler Lockett, 2 rookies, and Van Jefferson. There's an easy path here for Okonkwo, who closed last year. His last 3 games were awesome. And if that carries over, I know they like Gunnar Helm. We'll see what the rookie tight end does. But I think very easy guy that you're going to see. There's a few of these tight ends, but he's my favorite. But there's a handful of guys that we're going to see early in the season pop. And it's going to be like the mad rush to get these guys off waivers when some of the later round tight ends that we have been drafting struggle. And Chig is one. I think Brenton Strange is going to be one for the Jaguars. I think Hunter Henry is going to be one for the Patriots, and potentially Juwan Johnson for the Saints. Those 4 guys are all going to be in opportunities where they can make some plays. And I would throw Mason Taylor in that conversation
I was about to say his name. Yep.
But I'm just talking about the older guys that are just kind of getting discounted a little bit. Or I'm sorry, disregarded a little bit, not discounted.
One more sleeper, if I were in a 14-team league, I might consider he was one of my least favorite wide receiver prospects in this draft class, because he had 6 catches all year out of 63 that were between the hash marks, according to True Media. This guy, all he did was stay outside. And I had no interest in him. He didn't have any special traits, but his name is Alec Iomanner. And the Titans desperately need someone, because you talked about Okonkwo. So just kind of thought about Iomanner. I feel like when I saw him in the preseason, he was doing some other stuff, just than, running verticals on the sideline or just staying out toward the boundary. So if they can use him a little bit differently, maybe they can unlock something in him.
I think he was one of those guys that, coming out of Stanford, People thought he would go a little sooner in the NFL draft,
Yeah.
and he went after DK.
Right. The guy that they took both of them.
Mhm.
Shamari DK, I believe, out of Florida. So Alec Manor. Look, you know what? If he does something early in the season, don't just toss it aside, I guess is what I'd say. I don't think you have to draft him, but it's a name to know. All right. What about, real quick, what about Chargers number 2 wide receiver? There's some interesting names, but do you think anyone that's relevant for fantasy?
Not Keenan Allen?
Did you say him?
No, but he's not being drafted in
No,
this range.
I don't know. I mean, is it Allen? Is it Quentin Johnston? Is it one of the rookies?
I would anticipate it being Keenan Allen as the second receiver there. And then when you factor in Johnston and the 2 rookies, I think that's where the headache comes in. So could one of them ascend to becoming a go-to target for Justin Herbert? Absolutely. You saw Lambert Smith have the great first preseason game, and you brought this up, which I don't think a lot of people realize, was that when Johnston suffered the concussion in the second or third preseason game, whatever it was Lambert Smith that stepped in and not Trey Harris. Um, there's definitely a scenario where one of those 2 guys can be good middle to the end of the year, especially if Johnston continues to frustrate with his drops and Keenan Allen proves not to be good on the outside, which could maybe be a problem for Lad McConkey, but let's hope that doesn't happen. But I think there's a path there. I just think at least for me, the guys that I went with, I would much rather have than second Chargers receiver. And I know, like, you did a draft recently where you drafted Johnston, and even to bring up the guy you auto picked to tie it all back in with Sleepy Hazer. Rashad Bateman doesn't get enough attention either. For a guy that could lead his team in touchdowns, and you have who knows what DeAndre Hopkins has left. Who knows what the tight end situation, how that plays out. They re-signed him, former first-round pick. Like, there's still a scenario here where he can make some plays. So don't hate him.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jamey. And thank you all for watching and listening. Have a great weekend. See you later, everybody.